Three, two.
Hey, what's up, guys? Back with another installment of Yinzers Yak. My name is Jesse, and as usual, I have the good old Marty with me.
Hello, 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 everyone.
A little bit of a hiatus lately.
Again.
We'll be yeah, yeah. I'm just gonna keep apologizing, but we will be getting back into a normal schedule here. Going into Thanksgiving and stuff, I will have a little bit more time than I have had in recent weeks. So we'll be back to the Wednesday upload days and the Saturday upload days. So twice a week. I know that's didn't happen last week, but we'll be uploading this as of Wednesday, and then this will be up. The other episode for this week will be uploaded as of Saturday. So I promise you guys this time.
I hope we can keep that promise. IRL from Saul, unfortunately, but that's okay. Stuff happens. Got to do what you got to do.
Yeah. Stuff does happen. So we're just gonna kind of do the same formula that we did for last week, and just kind of pick and choose what we want to talk about. We will also talk about Thursday night's game coming up here, which thankfully is another good one here out of the many trash Thursday night games that have been as of late. But 2 weeks in a row, we get a good decent one. So we're just going to jump into last Thursday night actually, and talk about our good old homers and the Panthers. So Pittsburgh comes off with the win. I'm sure if you know anything about football that you've heard about this game, and it was a wow game.
Was an
And
ass whooping, a slobber knocker. Okay.
Pittsburgh comes out of this game 6-2-1, and Carolina drops to 6-3. Obviously, both teams still in the race for both of their divisions. Obviously, still very good teams. Pittsburgh ended up winning this 52 to 21 over Carolina. And I'll let Marty talk since you've heard nothing but my voice for the last like 3 minutes here.
Yeah, so 52-21. Fun fact for the day, for the podcast, whatever you want to say. 52 points is the most points the Steelers have ever scored on Heinz Field. I don't know about Three Rivers, but in the history of Heinz Field, that's the most they've ever scored. This
It's
is a
actually most any team has ever scored at Heinz Field. So
any
we
okay,
we
okay,
we
sorry,
hold
my
our
bad.
own record. So that's
It's the
that's
way
that's
it should
awesome. I
be.
think. Yeah.
That is absolutely the way it should be. No, this one was a fun one to watch. This is a game I actually almost went to. I really wish I had. I wish I would have went and freeze my butt off and saw 52 points get up on the board. But unfortunately that did not happen. But like I said, it was still fun to watch. This Steeler offense, man, they are clicking on all cylinders right now, and it's good to see them able to have a really good game when James Conner isn't at his best, which I would say he probably wasn't this game. Um, he didn't play bad or anything by any means, but what he's done in the past, the previous weeks, it's definitely not where he was at this week. So, like I said, it was good to see the Steelers offense be able to work well without him. Big Ben, what can we say about him? He was
we could say a
yeah,
lot.
we could say a lot.
In regards to James, too, I think or supposed concussion. He did pass concussion protocol.
That's good.
By
I
the
did
way,
not know
today.
that. I did not know that.
Yeah, so
That's good to
he
hear.
he passed the protocol today, so he's all good to go for this upcoming week. But I think with what they feared with his head injury and stuff, they didn't really, even if it wasn't that bad of an injury, they didn't care to play him once the score was run up as fast as it was. So I think that's why we're not seeing huge stat lines from him. I believe, if I remember correctly, though, he still had about 70 yards total from scrimmage for playing. Roughly around like three-ish quarters, maybe a little bit less than that. But I think they didn't really care once we started racking up the points.
Yeah, there's no point to get him out there, even if I mean, if he was in concussion protocol, if he went in the 10, he may have passed it, and something could have changed after the game. But like you said, there was no reason to get him back in there and risk anything getting worse. Sticking with the offense and going back to Ben a little bit, some stats from Ben from this game. He was 22 for 25, 328 yards, 5 TDs. He had more touchdowns than incompletions. That's really all that needs to be said. It's clear he had a very good night. He was also the number 2 rusher for the Steelers in this game with three
This
carries.
man's got wheels this week.
He had 3 carries for 27 yards. One of those was a long, I believe, a long first down, if I remember correctly.
Yeah,
Um,
that was the one that I personally I didn't feel it was a dirty hit. I
God,
felt
the ejection, yeah, that didn't need to
nah,
happen.
that was kind of goofy. I understood the penalty, but the ejection I don't think it was warranted. I did like how the offensive line had Ben's back in that, but I think Reed went after Ben just to touch him when he was sliding down to the ground to ensure he was down, and he let up, so he didn't completely snap Ben's neck backwards or anything. And when he let up, it just happened when he let up that his shoulder was right in the place of Ben's head. I mean, you saw the interaction between Ben and Reed after that.
Yeah,
That
they were.
it
It was
kind of
completely incidental, and when you watch it
yeah
in slow motion too, everything looks 100 times worse than it was. But he that could have been a lot worse had he not gotten his elbow up to where he did. So thankfully, he was able to.
yeah. But I think the main takeaway out of that one, is, Ben's got some wheels as of
Yes.
and that run
No
was a
signs of
very
slowing down.
yeah, no, that run was a very nice display of when Ben finally gets the train chugging that it's a nice little jog down the field there. So it was nice to see some mobility out of him.
Yeah, I
It,
mean, I think it's been kind of going on for a couple years now. People say he's kind of slowing down, but he proved all them wrong this past Thursday. That's for sure.
yeah, I jumped up and down when I saw when he saw him get out of the pocket and start chugging forward, especially once he was continuing running after the first down. I was like, wow, I was a little shocked. Another fun fact for you guys: Big Ben is the only quarterback in the history of the NFL. Let that sink in. The history of the NFL to have 4 perfect passer rating games. He did one in 2005, two in 2007, and then he did his one most recently, as of late, this past week. So I'll let that sink in to just kind of display how elite Ben is, and even if he doesn't get the talks with the elite quarterbacks under Rodgers, Breeze, and Brady.
Yeah, that is. It's pretty crazy to stat to even like think about. I mean, on how hard it is to get the perfect passer rating, and him to be the only one that has done it 4 times. I would have definitely thought, Brett Favre, maybe Marino, even Peyton Manning or Tom Brady would have done it. But it's surprising. It's a nice stat to see for Ben there. It's a good one. Not that he cares about stats, but we all do. So
Yeah, we gotta have something to talk about. So we're gonna sit here and talk about it if he's not. Um, on the fact of Big Ben and tossing it up for this game, AB, a wonderful, beautiful burn to the end zone with his nice little catch in this game. Completely burnt rookie cornerback. Drawing a blank on his name, but rookie cornerback for the Panthers actually had a really good season so far. Burns him and just walks his way into the end zone, and they flash to the cornerback on the sideline as he's his
pissed.
yeah,
Plain
I'll
and
do that as an
simple.
understatement. He was definitely pissed, throwing stuff and smashing his hands off the bench and stuff. But it's nice to see, AB just get one of those long bombs and just completely, do what he does best.
Yeah, I feel like we haven't seen that a lot this season. We're seeing like the red zone TDs, which is obviously good. It's good to see the red zone offense working really well for them. But it is always nice to see those long passes from him that we have been used to seeing here in so many years past. It was nice. It was nice to see he sped his way to the end zone. It's amazing.
Yeah. I would say, a little again another statement there. I think he was a little bit faster than sped because he burnt everybody on his way to the end zone. But yeah, that was very beautiful.
Yeah, no, definitely was. Moving to the defensive side of the ball, we have pretty much talked about the defense, obviously the offense too, every week here. But the question for me comes up again: is this defense for real, or was Carolina just not prepared? I think going into Thursday night games, and nobody, no coach, no players ever going to say this, but I don't think a lot of game planning is done. You have 2 games within 5 days. There's not a ton of time to watch tape. obviously in general, just game plan. I still, I hesitate to say that this defense is for real. I really do. I think this is a case of Carolina just not really being ready whatsoever coming into this Thursday night game, especially on the road. They probably traveled on either Wednesday, maybe Tuesday, not 100% sure. There just wasn't a lot of time to prepare, and I mean, you say that, and then we'll look what the Steelers did. But maybe they were just more prepared than Carolina. I want to see this defense. I want to see them continue to do good. I think going into week 13, 14, like the end of the season, we got the Chargers coming up, New England, New Orleans. I want to see them have a good game against one of those offenses, and then we can talk. Then I will be settled and believe that this defense is 100% for real. Not to say that Carolina is a bad team. They're one of the better teams in the NFL. I just really think as a whole they had an off night and just weren't really ready. What do you think, Jesse?
Yeah, I'm not gonna, call the Panthers a terrible team here or tell them that they're on the decline. I just think it was just more of a case of the Steelers being a little bit more prepared than the Panthers were. But like you said, you have a very short week. Obviously, Steelers had a little bit longer to prepare than the Panthers did. When it comes down to actual execution being played out in the game, it seems like. But I just think that the Steelers did what they needed to do, and they need to enjoy this extra long week going into this game against Jacksonville. But I just think the Panthers have been too one-dimensional, and the Steelers played to that. Obviously, McCaffrey still played as wonderful as he's been playing this whole year, but he was about the only body that showed up on offense. And remember that there was points to be had. I just think they're too one-dimensional on offense. The screen passes and the runs and stuff, and I think Pittsburgh did a good job of shutting that down. That's kind of why you saw the score run up for one side and not the other.
Yeah, if McCaffrey, as we have in our notes here, he was really the only one that did show up. He put the points up on the board for him. It just wasn't enough. They need to do a little bit more with this offense. We talked about this with the preview in the previous week about whether they would get away from the run game and the screens to McCaffrey and whatnot, and they really didn't at all. And I think that was part of their downfall. Like, Pittsburgh was definitely ready for it. They were prepared. I can't lie, I was a little worried when they marched on the field on the first possession. I was like, oh, here we go. But they were ready for it. They were able to maintain, and they were able to run up the score. And that was the end of the story for Carolina. They had nothing. They had no type of answer. All they had was McCaffrey. That was it. Cam didn't play. I don't think Cam really played terribly either. But like I said, everything, all the production went from him to McCaffrey. So there just wasn't much there.
Yeah, I wouldn't game, but he just didn't do much. Is more what I would say. So I think going forward they rebound and have a good rest of their upcoming games. But I don't think that I'm going to call them bad or sluggish after this, or on the downward spiral, like I like to say. But I think going forward, both teams look to dominate in their upcoming games here.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what other teams game plan against Carolina, seeing just what Pittsburgh was able to do, holding their offense back. You say that, and McCaffrey still ran and caught all over us basically, but at the end of the day, they did more than enough. So we'll see if Carolina is able to come back with something better in this upcoming week.
Yeah, I'm very curious to see if teams like to look at our tape and see kind of how to play them and stuff, and see if Carolina adjusts. I feel they don't really have the resources to adjust a bunch. Cam's historically not been a big thrower. He's always been mobile and never put up multiple 400-yard games and stuff in a season and that. But I think they just need to expand the offense a little bit more than they are right now.
Yeah, they need to get the ball away from McCaffrey a little bit, spread it out just a little bit more, give some different looks, and they'll be They'll be cruising along, I think, if they do that.
Yep, most definitely. Any so in regards to going forward, we're playing Jacksonville, obviously this next week. Do you feel, with Blake Bortles being kind of subpar, that they lean more towards the run game? You think they kind of shy away from that after the Steelers did with like Carolina's offense here, and kind of just shut down, other than McCaffrey, like we said, being able to do things. They basically kind of shut down the whole rest of the offense and just brought a lot of pressure on the Jags. So you think the Jags kind of rely more on Fournette this week, or you think they try and balance it out?
I think they kind of have to because, I mean, you can look at Blake Bortles' stat lines, but a lot of these games that the Jacksonville Jaguars win, you could go back to the 2 games against the Steelers last year. When their running game is working, their passing game seems to work. It seems to elevate Blake Bortles. It takes the pressure off of him because for whatever reason, he just can't handle pressure, it seems like. Granted, he did last year. I'll give him that. But their run game has to be strong this week, I think, if they want to have a chance against the Steelers. The defense has obviously been subpar for Jacksonville after Jalen Ramsey talked all kind of shit. Talk about that every week. That's been kind of the downfall. I mean, you look last week, Blake didn't have a terrible game. Actually, he had a pretty good game stat line wise. 26 for 38, 320 yards, 2 TDs. Just lost by 3 to the Indianapolis
The Amish man.
Yeah, the Amish man. But yeah, I think the big key, if Jacksonville wants to have a chance in this game, which, I mean, any Steeler fan knows that the Steelers tend to play down to competition. I don't really think this 3-6 Jacksonville team is exactly what their record is, but I could still absolutely see the Steelers playing like a 3-6 team against them. Maybe not taking it seriously. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe whatever, we'll say, cancer was in that locker room from last year that caused, this team to not be prepared, I guess you could say, for the big game that was against Jacksonville. Maybe that's gone. Maybe it's a completely different scenario. But aside from all that, at the end of the day, if Jacksonville can get their running game going, I think this could be a difficult one for the Steelers because for whatever reason, Blake Bortles seems to thrive with a good running game behind him.
Yeah, and along the lines of the run game, Fournette had 107 yards and 3 touchdowns in that playoff game against us. So obviously they do like to utilize him against the Steelers, but I think going forward here, the Steelers need to shut him down, and I think then the rest of the offense, rest of the offense is going to have a chance to open up.
Yeah, definitely. I guess one more thing about this, I made a burnt take, I think a week or two ago when Jacksonville picked up Landry Jones. Do you think we see him in this game if Blake Bortles just decides to shit the bed for some reason or another, or does he stay in there no matter what?
No. I think Bortles stays in, especially like we talked about how he had a fairly decent game against Indy. Obviously didn't get the win, but had a decent game against Indy and put up a good stat line. So I think they stick with him going forward. And even if he decides to, shit the bed, that he relies on Fournette more than the game plan.
Yeah, definitely. We'll see. I don't, this should be on paper. This should be a game that the Steelers should just come out and pretty much dominate. But I have a feeling this one's going to be a bit of a butt clencher and a lot closer than it should be or needs to be.
Yeah, I'm preparing my butt cheeks already.
All right, moving on from the Homer talk, we had a couple other games here to talk about from this past weekend. First one being New England versus Tennessee. New England comes out of this one at 7-3 with Tennessee at 5-4. A bit of a rough loss and a surprising loss, I guess you could say, for New England. They just really didn't seem to show up this past Sunday. Granted, they tend to have these games they lose by good margin, at least once or twice in a season, it seems, and then they turn it around. And luckily, coming off of this bye week for New England, they have a nice, vulnerable, young New York Jets team to open up a can of whoop-ass on, which I'm sure they'll do. But without getting into that, we can continue to talk about this game. Tom's not been really looking so good, Jesse. He is 19th in the league with in completion, and he is 16th in QBR. Not that that's crazy important, but those numbers are definitely down from what we're normally seeing from Tom. Is he finally aging? Is it happening?
No, I honestly think it's one of those seasons that Tom has. They're not like an overpowered offense. Something's not clicking on the offensive level. Something is not working correctly or how they want it to, but they're just still managing to win games. Their defense is actually pretty good this year as compared to years past. I think they're focusing more on that and just allowing Tom to do what he does best and just kind of win them games. I don't really think he's never concerned about stats, but I think more so this year he's just worried about winning games as compared to trying to really like run the score up and such. So I think that's why you're seeing 19th in completion percentage and 16th in quarterback rating, just because they're just winning games and they're doing it strategically and methodically like they normally do. But I think they're relying a little bit more on that than running up the score like they normally do. So I I don't know so much as Tom's aging, but I feel as Tom gets older, I care much about running that score up and stuff. He's just concerned more about winning the games, and their offense isn't super high power like it has been, like I said, in years past. They never have real big superstars, but Gronk's been in and out of this whole season. And they brought Josh Gordon in. He had a good game last week, not against Tennessee, but the week before that. But then was kind of a non-factor in this game, and I think there's a lot of things that get into it. But I don't see him aging particularly.
No, I don't think so either. As he's gotten older, it's kind of like a situation with Ben. He gets hit less a lot. When he does hit, he cries like a baby. But another time we could talk about that. I think he's getting to the point where he's doing what he needs to do, like you said, to win games. There's no need to really run up the score. If he needs to go out there and win a game on a last minute drive, he can still do that. They couldn't get any traction whatsoever in this game though. Obviously, if you're a New England fan, you're gonna look at the back on the schedule at the end of the season, no matter what happens, be like, damn, should have won this game. It's just one of those. Every team has those, but I don't think there's no need to worry whatsoever. And like I said before, with them coming off a bye week, they're going to be hungry to go up against a really, really bad Jets team. So it'll be interesting. Either that or hey, maybe the Jets will shock us and they'll beat New England as well. That's that's what we can all hope for. I really, really doubt we're going to see that though. Just another thing sticking with New England's offense. Obviously, they're not a high caliber offense. Whether they have big names or not, they've never been extremely over the top. A few years here or there, but when you get 40 rushing yards, it's not going to do you any favors. And they've really had no rushing game whatsoever all season long, which has been a major detriment to them. They're 18th in the league, so I guess they're kind of middle of the pack, but they don't have any type of like impact runner. Obviously, not a superstar. It's not necessarily something that they couldn't correct midway through the season here, but I don't see them really doing too much. Obviously, Lev Bell is off the plate. We'll talk about that later. I don't know. I don't know what they're gonna do with the running game. I think they just kind of have to stick with it and kind of hope something changes or somebody starts shining for them, because it's gonna.
Yeah.
I think it could hurt them in the long run if this continues.
Yeah. Before I touch on that, another like interesting fact. Tom has had 23 of these games in his career that he's lost by 20 plus points. So averages out to about like a game and a quarter every year that this happens to him. So I don't think it's reason for panic. But yeah, on the rushing yard side, I just think they don't have that tandem that they had with Dion Lewis, which we'll get to in a second. I just don't think they have the tandem with him in there with James White and stuff, and just they don't have as open of a run game. I think the backs that they have in there this year are just kind of lackluster-ish, and maybe in free agency they go after a B plus level running back. We'll see. But yeah, I don't see them making any big moves. They never make huge moves. The Josh Gordon thing was like the biggest move I can remember in recent years for the Patriots, and I was shocked at that. So I just think they need to rely more on their success of their defense than having to worry about putting up a bunch of run yards every game.
Yeah, I mean, they just need to do enough, and Tom is more than capable of allowing them to do that. He's done it for years, just dink and dunk, dink and dunk, dink and dunk. That's all he needs to do, and they'll win games.
Yep, I completely agree with you. On the case of Dion Lewis, I think seriously he's been a really good pickup for Tennessee. He just had 68 total yards this last game. Henry had the 2 touchdowns, but he had 58 yards rushing, and another. I'm sorry, 69 total yards. So he had 58 yards rushing and 11 year. He is on the season 396 yards rushing, a touchdown, and 270 yards receiving, and another touchdown. He's averaging almost 8 yards a catch. So I think that's huge for them out of the backfield. And I think with having Derrick Henry also, that allows for their run game to be two-dimensional. Obviously, Dion Lewis is shifty and fast and elusive, and Derrick Henry is more of a power horse, but also has a bunch of speed. So I think them using both of them will work out in their advantage, and it has so far this year. Their run game has been really good, and I think with Lewis leaving the Patriots, he seems to be a little bit more happy. If you've seen his quote of about playing the Patriots after they won, him calling them cheap and saying that's what happens when you're cheap. You get your asses kicked.
I did not hear that. That is wonderful.
I think that's a little lash out emotional game for him, but it looks to be good that he won that, and I think that he's definitely stepping up and making a case to be running back number one, but I don't think they'll really define a running back one in this offense just because Henry and him have been such a good tandem.
Yeah, I think that, and I mean, we're seeing it all over the league. Every running back can catch. Every running back goes out wide now and again. I just, a lot of teams don't really have that true number one. He's gonna get the bulk of the passing, but I think the runs will continue to be split. But that's okay. He's making the most of the carries he's getting, which is really good to see.
Yeah, most definitely, and especially coming from New England, who doesn't run very often. I think it's nice for him to actually, be used more as a running back as compared to like a receiving back.
Just real quick, because we got one more point, but I want to add something. Just it's in my head while it's fresh. I think this is an interesting second half for New England because it's really gonna tell a story on what they're gonna do this upcoming season. Obviously, we don't know what Tom is gonna do, whether he sticks around, retires. If they win a Super Bowl, he'll probably play 5 more years. But I think it's interesting because if for some reason this team kind of falls apart, maybe they somehow finish 9-7, 10-6, something like that. I think they may begin to blow things up there. I mean, they definitely, we all know Belichick wants another quarterback. The saga with Garoppolo and Tom and all that crap that happened. But I mean, that they need a running back. The defense has definitely improved, but the offense, I mean, they're in line if they don't finish this season strong. I think for a little bit of an overhaul, especially if Tom ends up retiring, or if they would have the balls up there to release him. Not that they would, but it's gonna be interesting. I think I really do. I think there's more to it than just finishing the season, getting to the playoffs for them. I think there's a lot more going on up there than we know about.
Yeah, no, I totally. I'm curious to see how he tackles. I still think they make the playoffs, and depending on who they play, it's going to be a little bit different this year. I mean, I don't think they're going to be able to go to Kansas City and win. I don't think they're going to be able to go to Pittsburgh and win. I don't think they're going to be able to go to even to Houston and win. So I think the most important thing for their season is being able to get that home field advantage for them, because I feel this is just one of those years where they're not able to round the year out and cruise into the playoffs and just go wherever they want and get a win. I don't see them. I don't see them winning in those three places. Yeah, so we'll see going forward. They're obviously their schedule's not super tough going forward. Jets, Vikings, Dolphins, Steelers, Bills, the Jets again. So I see two potential losses there, depending on how the Vikings play. Vikings are going to New England now, so we'll see there. And then they come to Pittsburgh to play us. But I feel that Dolphins game there, December 9th, could be a good one. It's in Miami, and the Dolphins have been very this year, but they've kind of played when they needed to, and I think they give New England a run for their money.
Yeah, I was gonna say if not that Miami game, one of these divisional games is gonna be tight. I feel. Obviously, they played the Jets twice this coming off the bye week and then the end of the season. My bet is it would be one of those, just one of the weird ones, or even Buffalo. Obviously, we saw the last Buffalo game was close up until the fourth quarter, but I think they're gonna have a little bit on their hands with one of the divisional games at least.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And with Brady not putting up the spectacular numbers, and they have to rely even more on defense
Yeah,
playing playing the Steelers, the Vikings. Obviously, two high-powered offense there is going to be tough for them if their offense doesn't also step up.
yeah, it absolutely is. That I mean, you said that you predict them to possibly lose to the Steelers, man. I'm right there with you. Homer all the way, but that is a hump that the Steelers have yet to get over. Whether it was a catch or not, whatever you want to say.
Won't happen this year because we changed the
No, no,
so.
we don't have to worry about that. We just have to flat out beat them, but we'll see. I'm fingers crossed for a win, but until it happens, I'm not getting excited just yet.
All right. With that, last note I kind of want to make on this game, Mariota. Obviously, if you listen a couple of weeks back, we were talking about franchise quarterbacks and who's not so much. I gave him some shit, and I think he's kind of been stepping up since I said something about him. Obviously, I'm not a direct influence on
He
him. He
must have
could give
heard
two
you.
shits. Yeah,
He
he
absolutely
could
heard
give
you.
two shits what I say. But he's been putting up the numbers and kind of managing games how he needs to. Obviously, the record's not super great right now, but it's kind of anybody's game in that division right now. So even at the 5-4, I still see them being able to win that division. He stepped up 228 yards, 21 rush yards, two touchdowns, and a passer rating of 125. I just think he needs to continue to do this in order for Tennessee to be successful. If he has lackluster weeks, I don't see them getting too far. But if he continues playing as well as he did this game against New England, yeah, I think Tennessee is going to be something serious because their defense is very hot right now.
Yeah, definitely, and they're another team. They're loaded with divisional games here in the second half of the season. They already have a big win over Houston in the beginning of the season when they weren't doing very well, and that's their upcoming matchup actually. Or sorry, not this week. The week after that, the 26th of November, week 12. So that's going to be an interesting one with how close this division is right now. We'll see if they can continue to sustain and if Mariota can continue to put up the good numbers and manage games like he needs to.
Yep, most definitely. So we're going to roll into the, the blowout of the week, other than the Steelers. Sticking in the division though, New Orleans Saints and the Cincinnati Bengals. New Orleans goes to 8-1 after this win, and since he drops to 5-4 after New Orleans steamrolls Cincy 50-14. Wow, did Drew Brees do Drew stuff? 150.4 QBR, 265 yards, three touchdowns, and as similar to Ben, he tied his completions with or incompletions with his touchdowns. I'm sorry, yeah, he tied his incompletions with his touchdowns. So three touchdowns, three incompletions, and he wasn't sacked once. I think as of late, the Saints offensive line isn't getting a bunch of credit for how well they're doing, how well they're run blocking well their pass blocking. But Drew's putting up numbers like this because of their offensive line and his ability to, you know, maintain his argument for one of the greatest ever. So he just keeps playing like this, and man, are they dangerous? They're fun to watch, but I am worried to play them. In would you say week 14 here?
Yeah, week
I think
14
it
I'm
is.
playing.
Yeah, so I'm scared to play them week 14.
I think it's safe to say that Drew Brees has to be in the talk for MVP at this point. 21 touchdowns, one pick. His yardage is a little bit lower than where it has been in previous years. Not that that's a bad thing at 2,600 yards currently on the season, but yeah, I think you make a case you have to for Drew. He's right up there with Patrick Mahomes, who we really haven't talked about too much, despite Kansas City improving the 9-1 this past week. But they are, man. They are a scary team. It is going to be a scary game when they, or rather when we go down to New Orleans to play them. It's going to be a fun one though. It really, really is. It's has that potential to be a shootout, like we like to say. But we're not going to worry about that just yet. We'll take care of business before we get down there, and then we can talk about them. But regardless, what they're doing right now is unbelievable. It really is, especially Drew. Another older quarterback being able to put up the numbers like he's putting up, and not getting sacked helps. Keeping these old guys young, so to say.
Yeah,
Not
yeah,
getting
yeah.
hit is definitely a good thing for these teams with the veteran QBs.
Yeah, a little interesting too from this game. There was a picture put up of the Saints punter sleeping in his locker, and it was just a caption of "Wow, um, what's the need for this? He didn't do much." And yeah, he didn't do much or anything at all. Actually, Saints didn't punt once during this game. So I think that just goes to show how scary their offense is.
Yeah, no, definitely nice free or a nice day off to get paid to do nothing for the punter for the Saints. It's not often that happens, but obviously it does. I'm sure he was probably glad to have the day off. Maybe not. Got probably tired, fell asleep.
Yeah,
Obviously,
yeah. Falling asleep in the locker. I mean, yeah, 100%. Um, on the flip side, Cincinnati's offense could only gather 174 yards passing. Um, it's just abysmal, especially if New Orleans is going to put up 51 points. You can't put up 171 yards passing unless they're going to put up 400 yards rushing, which they didn't. They didn't do bad though on the upside, rushing against the Saints, which is the top run defense in the league. Put up 110 on the Saints, which is more than their average game. So awesome for them on that end. But Andy Dalton, man, needs to step up.
I feel like we've been saying that since he came into the league. He stinks. He's awful. He's terrible. Never gonna do anything.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'll touch on the note that I have down here. Andy Dalton, it just disappeared in this game, like he likes to do in big games. 153 yards passing, one touchdown, two interceptions, sacked four times, and a 61 quarterback rating. He's definitely better than a good bit of quarterbacks in this league, but he is not the answer in Cincinnati. And God, does he disappear in these important games for them?
Yeah, he really does. If you want to, he could argue that we'll take a little trip back in time here. You could say Palmer wasn't the guy, and obviously I was younger when Carson Palmer played. But just looking back on what he did, I think he even had more than what Dalton does. It doesn't help that that Dalton is just kind of been molded into this losing franchise, so to speak. Granted, they've had successful years. They couldn't tell you what a playoff win is or pretty much what the playoffs are, which I don't think that does any favors for your quarterback. But it is weird how he's just one of those quarterbacks that I guess you could say doesn't have that clutch gene, that big game gene. He just constantly seems to crumble, and if it's not him screwing up these big games for the Bengals, it's something stupid, some stupid penalty, an ejection, something like that. But this is all on him this week in terms of not being able to get it done for Cincinnati.
Yeah, he just doesn't even put them in the game in the discussion. being able to go back and forth there. So I think it's definitely sad to see. On that aspect, do you think the Bengals are kind of crumbling?
Of course they are. They brought Hugh Jackson in to replace Marvin Lewis. No, I mean, I think we see this all the time, man. They start off hot. They're the talk of the NFL. This is the year, yada yada yada, and here we are.
Sounds pretty familiar to other teams in our division here.
I mean, it's just it always
Browns.
seems to happen. Like this is the way this division goes. It seems year after year. The Steelers start slow. Oh, they're not going to be able to do it. The Bengals and the Ravens, they start off hot. 3-0, 4-0, and once we get to the divisional matchups, both teams kind of start to fall apart. I mean, I have more fear in the Ravens than the Bengals. That's for sure. Um, to get back to the question though, to answer it more directly, I would say, yeah. I think we're in a classic bungling situation here for the Bengals. It's the same story, different year with them. Not that it can't be turned around, but when you have a game like this and a very very important game, when you're fighting for the division, after getting lapped by the Steelers on a bye week, they were lapped by the Steelers. You need to come on. You need to show more than this. You really do, especially Andy Dalton. I think this all falls back on him. He has got to do more for them, and he has just not shown the ability to do that. And I don't think that ability is gonna show anytime soon.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. I do, I I think they are, and I think their strong point was their defense initially, but that's kind of withered away. And with AJ Green gone for however many weeks now, because still no real updates on that. They don't have a big weapon on offense. I mean, I think at this point their best weapon on offense is Joe Mixon, and he had a decent game this week, but him alone can't carry your team into victory. So
Well, not
somebody
only
else
that,
needs to step up.
if AJ Green's in there, somebody's got to throw him the ball. They actually have to get the ball to him, like in his hands.
Yeah,
It can't hit the ground. Can't miss him.
yeah. So we'll see going forward. If either side decides to pick up, that would be awesome for them. But I don't see it. I see them kind of crumbling like a little fresh chocolate chip cookie here. So speaking of crumbling, the opposite of crumbling would be I think baking and coming out fresh in a fucking brick, and that's what Kamara and Ingram with the Saints, and they're really scary together. I think definitely the hands down the best running back tandem we have in the NFL, and I think they need to continue with this tandem going forward. I don't think they ever really need to make an RB1 decision and kind of just need to do what they're doing. Ingram had 104 yards rushing and 58 yards receiving with a touchdown. And Kamara had 56 yards rushing and 46 yards receiving. And that's 264 yards together combined for the running backs.
Disgusting.
And that's not even one of their best games this year. So for me to say 264, they've been better. It's really scary. And it looks going forward like nobody knows how to stop them or what to do with them. So, wow, it's very very scary, and I'm looking forward to see what they do in the next 2 weeks here against the teams that they play, and just to see if they can get over the 300 yards combined for both of them.
Yeah, but it's scary. Like just they are absolutely scary. They don't need to do the 1 and 2. I think you have 1A and 1B with Kamara and Ingram. If one of them's having even an off day, the other one's gonna pick them up. It is an interesting situation to have two number one running backs, and I guess you could say number 2 and number 3 receivers. Really, when you look at their numbers, the Saints team, man, they again scary. That's really all you can say. They are a team to seriously be concerned with if you're going up against them.
Yeah, and I think the only spot that the Saints lack in is the secondary. In their cornerback situation, still getting that figured out. But they're obviously their rush defense is outstanding, and their offense is up there with one of the best in the league, if not the best. So we'll see going forward if anybody decides to stop them. If not, I think you're going to see them easily NFC Championship game, if not in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Them and the Rams would be a wonderful matchup again in the NFC title game. Well, again in a matchup, but not, you get what I'm saying. Getting my
Yeah,
words mixed
yeah,
up. But yeah, another matchup would be good. Let's just leave it at that.
yeah. I think a rematch in the NFC game would be spectacular.
We will see. Maybe that's what's coming. Who knows?
Yeah. So actually, on that note, we'll continue talk about the Saints. We're gonna hop into league news, so we're kind of gonna hop around all over. But it's kind of picturesque of entire tenure in the NFL as of the last year. Des Bryant gets signed with the Saints, and 2 days later he tears his Achilles. So obviously, you're not going to see much of him this season. And I don't see them re-signing him next season either. So they brought in Brandon Marshall to replace him, and I'm curious to see how he takes some pressure off Michael Thomas, which obviously it hasn't affected him much as of late, anyways. He continues to steamroll. Number 2 receiving yards in the league for him. So we'll see if he just continues to dominate as he has been. But oh man, Des Bryant, I feel for you, bud.
Yeah, that is unfortunate. That was his second practice that happened to him, and I got the message from ESPN that he had been taken off the field with a lower body injury, and they were speculating already that he tore his Achilles. You feel for him. I think you feel for any athlete. He's been sitting around all season, kind of waiting for a job. Looked like he was going to sign with Cleveland earlier in the season. I almost think he would take the torn Achilles over being with the Cleveland Browns. That's just my opinion. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he thinks differently. But it's unfortunate. I'm a believer that Dez caught it way back when. You hate to see it. He was definitely I guess you could say on the comeback trail. Not that he was really gone that long, but you don't really want any player like this to go down, especially this early in their tenure with the team. It's very unfortunate, but I think Brandon Marshall's kind of coming in there in the same role, not all that much better or worse than Des Bryant, you could say. It's kind of a similar wide receiver.
No, I like the height on Brandon Marshall, though.
Yeah.
It's always been one of his key aspects, and I think Michael Thomas is not a short receiver by any means, but I think it just adds another element to their game. They have a tall receiver that can, throw it up to in the end zone, catch a nice deep bomb.
Just to further improve that red zone.
Yeah, we have other news on a tall receiver getting maybe not what he wanted in this league. Over and under seems to be through with Terrell Pryor. He's released from the Bills. So us saying that he was going to get 300 receiving yards, obviously he's under that because he's gone. I don't know who's going to sign him next, but I don't really know what happened there. He had 8 targets, 2 catches, and 13 yards, I believe, 17 yards, something like that.
Was there any type of statement with his release, or just that they released him? I mean, I wouldn't say he was given much of a chance. Maybe they just didn't like what they were seeing. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it was more of he didn't scheme of the Bills. The only NFL player to ever have 1,000 yards passing and 1,000 yards receiving in a season, Terrell Pryor. So he's a very versatile guy. So it's kind of weird that you can't fit him somewhere into your scheme. But yeah, I think that's more what it was. Didn't fit the Bills scheme, so they just kind of booted him. There wasn't really any word said with that.
Yeah, and obviously you always hear rumblings about everybody that's out there. Oh, the Steelers should sign him. They had talked about it before. I don't really think that's going to be a move that they'll make. I think he does land somewhere, though, here within the next couple weeks, more than likely. Maybe not, though. He is very versatile. It is weird that nobody has really been able to fit him in quite the right way. It's hard to say where he'll end up, if anywhere, but I see him having another home here before the end of the season. We can get back to the over-under once that happens.
we'll just keep the tally going.
Yeah, well, he's got 3 yards, correct? I believe.
No, I think he is
Okay,
13 or 17. Yeah,
okay.
something very far, but yeah.
On his way.
So slowly on his way. I honestly, I think with James Washington underperforming as of late, Steelers, look to demote somebody. I don't think they go after Pryor. Like you said, you always hear rumblings and stuff of like, oh, should the Steelers get him? Blah blah blah. No, I don't see them going after him. But it would be an interesting addition to the offense to see kind of like what they would do with him because, like we said, he's very versatile. Able to throw the ball too, which we had flashbacks of Heinz Ward throwing the ball stuff, Antoine Randall throwing. I mean, we've had receivers in the past that were quarterbacks and transitioned over to wide receivers. Obviously not in the NFL, but in college and stuff. So they were able to use them. And it's worked out good ways then, but I don't see Pryor signing with that. But I do see him getting signed within a couple of weeks here somewhere.
Yeah, somebody will need him. Somebody will wanna see if they can fit him into their scheme possibly. So we'll keep tabs on him. Why not?
Yeah, why not? um, so Joe Flacco, has sitting out on practice. Lamar Jackson has a good chance of starting. Do we see the end of Joe Flacco era in Baltimore if he decides to perform well?
It would be hard to take him out. Sticking with this, I don't know if you heard. We can. It's basically the same topic. There are talks of Harbaugh being done at the end of the season here.
Yeah, there's kind of been mutual agreement there, from what I understand.
So it almost with that leading back into Flacco's injury, it kind of makes me think that Jackson could go out there and have somewhat of a mediocre, just average game, and I think he might stick with him, especially if they lose, go 5-5. I mean, why not stick with the young guy? See what you got. We've seen him in there for plays here and there. All they seem to really do is just have him do a QB draw with Flacco out wide. Not sure why they haven't switched that up, but I would like to see the Ravens throw him in there, and it seems like that may happen this upcoming weekend.
Yeah, we will just have to wait and see. But I think good game that they kind of stick with him going for. I mean, why else did they draft him so high?
Yeah, I mean, they obviously definitely a good game, but I think it'll be kind of hard. Like I said, even with an average game to pull him out of there. Even if Flacco is healthy with how he's been on the decline here in the past couple weeks, you could have argued that he was fighting for his job early on this season, but just like the rest of the division, he is tailed off. So maybe it's time.
Who knows? Just have to wait and see.
Yes, we will.
Um, Chiefs and Rams were moved from Mexico to LA after finding out poor field conditions, very poor field conditions. If you've seen any um, of the stadium and stuff, and the turf was torn up. You think this has any effect on the game? Obviously it moved to the Rams home stadium.
I think it does. I mean, I always think especially in football, I think there's an element of home field advantage. Whether that affects the Chiefs that much, I'm not really sure. It's definitely good that they got out of that stadium in Mexico City. It was utterly atrocious. Like you're asking for some ACL tears with that turf there.
Oh, yeah.
Um, yeah, I mean, I don't think it does wonders for the Rams, but I think it's always definitely better to be playing at home than on the road or Mexico City.
Yeah,
Good field
yeah,
or not.
most definitely. Yeah, I think you were you were asking for some injuries with that field. I don't think I would let anybody play on that field, so I think it was a good decision.
Definitely.
Obviously talked about Connor out of the concussion. Hopefully, I don't see that limiting him going forward. He seemed to be totally back to normal, and he was a full participant in practice today. So going forward, I see they use him to his full ability in this game since there's no injury designation.
Yeah, I mean, unless he goes out there and gets bumped again, I feel like I always worry with concussions. especially, I mean, in every sport, but in football, I think it's just, you're taking a hit on the head nearly every single play, especially as a running back.
Hmm.
It's so easy to just go out there and take the slightest bump, or even, you get tackled and your head bounces off the turf, to just re-injure it. I mean, if he's out of protocol, obviously he's fine. They wouldn't let him back in without it, but it's just so easy to get hurt again with concussions. It doesn't take much, it seems like. You can get hit extremely hard, nothing, and then the lightest bump, you're out again. Uh, Hopefully that doesn't happen. I don't. He's definitely not going to be limited. I guess the concern kind of comes with this, that if he does go down, the two backs, Ridley and help me out here, the rookie
Samuels. Wow, there you
Samuels.
go.
Yeah,
Come on, rookie.
uh, I don't not have faith in them. Just seeing what Connor's been able to do, any running back, can come out of their shell, so to speak. And Ridley's proven himself before, but I hope we don't have to resort to that.
Yeah. God, excuse me.
Okay,
No, yeah, no, I'm all good. I really hope that they're smart with him. If they feel, he gets hit in the head or whatever, to take him out, go through the proper measures to not knock him out for any longer than he needs to be. So I think they just need to be smart with him in this upcoming game.
Yeah, I didn't hear, but I would assume that, I mean, if he's out of protocol, I don't know if he's still limited the rest of the week. I would assume that's like procedure with a concussion, maybe, but maybe not. I'm not 100% sure. I'd have to look to see exactly what they're doing, but we'll see
Yeah,
come Sunday what they decide to do with him.
yeah, they had him listed as full participant in practice, so
Okay.
they're not limiting him in practice. So I would assume they're going to go for the game, but who knows? Maybe they use a lesser um, lesser battering of his body. But we'll just have to wait and see. Time will tell on that one.
We will. Moving on, just a couple more things to talk about news-wise here. We kind of touched on this a little bit ago. Hugh Jackson has joined the Bengals as an assistant to the head coach. What on earth are they doing? Is this is this to light a fire under Marvin Lewis's ass? Not that it shouldn't have happened years ago. What do you think they're doing here?
I don't know. To me, this is good showtime. Marvin Lewis, I like Marvin guy. I always have, but as a coach, I don't know. He hasn't done much for the Mongols. And I don't know, is Jackson just kind of that guy that gets hired to kind of scare coaches, maybe,
His
but
record would definitely do that. I would definitely be scared. Yes.
Yeah, so going forward, we'll see what kind of role he plays, but I'm interested to see if they kind of get worse with Jackson going in, or if he comes in and it totally turns him around and improves him. Who knows? But it's just kind of a head scratcher for me on this one.
Yeah, I hesitate to say that Lewis is on a short leash because I don't know the exact number of years, but I know they are 0-7, I believe, in the playoffs. I mean, he has done everything imaginable to lose his job, and yet he still has not lost it. But maybe this is it. I mean, maybe
They have a really long leash in Cincinnati.
yeah, like never ending. Perhaps this is it though. Maybe they see what's happening again for the 1000th time, and maybe they have just had enough, and this is kind of either to get him going, to wake this team up, or it's just gonna kind of be the end. They maybe get blown out this week, and we see the end of Marvin Lewis's time in Cincinnati. I don't know. Regardless, I don't really think Hugh Jackson is the answer either. But maybe this is that. Maybe this is about the time for Marvin Lewis to pound some salt and hit the dusty trail.
Yeah, maybe we'll just have to wait and see. Speaking of hitting the dusty old trail.
No, I'm not singing. Le'Veon Bell's gone, and I could not be. I'm what's the word? Ecstatic. I am ecstatic. How about you?
Yeah, I'm really just glad to stop talking about this and stop hearing about it and stop seeing the reporters ask questions about it and just the whole situation. I'm just glad. Connor's the man now in Pittsburgh. He will be going forward. He will be next year. I don't care where Bell signs in the free agency. We're done talking about it. So I am just glad that it came around. He didn't sign, and then now it's over with. Like Ben said, well, it didn't happen, so we can stop answering questions about it.
Yeah, and like I said, he listening to him on his radio show, he just I think he is so badly just wanted to say like he just doesn't care. Connor's my guy. Like I'm over it. And that's more or less what he said. He's not going to come out and directly say that. He doesn't need to stir the pot anymore. None of them do. Nobody had a really outrageous reaction. A lot of the Steelers wished him the best in whatever the hell he decides to do. But this is a joyous occasion. I feel this is actually just looking at it as a whole. This is probably the best scenario. Granted, we've had to deal with this shit for the last 11 weeks. The Steelers have. They dealt with it well. Obviously, it hasn't been a distraction, but we don't have to worry about Bell going anywhere else like New England or something like that. Granted, I would have taken that had this ended 6 weeks ago. But we just don't have to worry about that. You play the season out. You don't hear from him. You don't worry about him. He's not there. He's not a distraction. The goal is set. Super Bowl. That this is just his best case, perfect scenario for the Steelers. They are moving on, and that's exactly what they needed to do. You have a complete team with one goal in mind and no distractions. Oh man, I'm excited.
Yes, I'm glad to get number one distraction of the last year just out of the way, and I'm excited for Connor to now just be the main highlight when people talk about the running back for the Steelers. So going forward, Connor, and that's all I want to hear about.
Yeah, I mean we're obviously we're gonna especially these primetime games. Well, James Conner and Le'Veon, we're gonna hear about it, but it's gonna start to die down. You want to shut everybody up. You go out there, James Conner and the Steelers, they win a Super Bowl. Le'Veon who?
Yeah, that would be wonderful.
One more thing with Bell, just kind of like a question, I guess, and we can both answer it. With his time here in Pittsburgh done, how do you see him as being remembered? After all this, after the accomplishments on the field, when people talk about Le'Veon Bell, what do you think they're talking about?
I see a really similar scenario when Harrison left the Steelers and went to the Patriots. Obviously, we don't know where Bell is going to go, but because of the whole situation and how it was dealt, I kind of see the same handling that Steelers fans toward. God, I can't talk. I see them handling this situation to how they handled James Harrison and his departure. So I'm thinking it's definitely more hostile than anything. There hasn't even really been any tweets or posts or anything on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram from the Steelers about Bell. I think that's mainly too because they can still transition tag him next year. But they're not going to sign him or anything next year. So I feel it's the same situation as James Harrison.
Yeah, I mean, if he goes to New England, I think you'll really hear it because, we all hate New England, whatever. Touching on a little bit, I think the Harrison situation was just a mess from the beginning, hearing all the things everybody had to say about him. You don't really hear people saying bad things about Bell from a locker room standpoint. It's more so like what he just did to the team as a whole, kind of holding out, leaving them, hanging to dry, not being one of the guys that wants to win. But I think this last, you could argue 2 years, the holdout last year for camp and then the entire holdout this year. I think at the end of the day, the great things that he did do on the field for us, I think that is all just overshadowed by all this BS and crap that he has caused these past 2 seasons. I don't think anybody's really going to remember him for being the that new age elusive back that he is or was. There's so many of them now in this short amount of time since he's broken out. But yeah, I don't think anybody cares. Nobody, Le'Veon Bell, it is what it is. Go where you're gonna go. Go to the Jets, get paid a ton of money, lose, be happy. I guess. I mean, yeah. He can. At the end of the day, he can do what he wants. I understand why he did it, but that, as a fan, I want to see a team that wants to win. I want players that want to win. Everybody wants to get paid, obviously, but it's clear as day that this team is in it to win it, you could say. And he was not.
Yeah. Oh yeah, 100%. And I think just how he handled the situation. Obviously, it was never about team. It was just about him and his money. So I really don't think he'll care where he goes to play. Maybe he will once he starts losing, but he's just worried about his money.
Yeah, or he'll start to care when he doesn't have a good O line in front of him and can't make all those moves. But it'll be interesting. Somebody somebody from ESPN, I don't have an exact name, but just one more thing on this, had tweeted out that they believe the predictors are saying that he will get Todd Gurley like money, if not more, and I can just not understand where they're getting that from. You cannot sit out a whole year and cause all this drama and expect to get paid that kind of money. He'll be lucky if he gets paid what he wanted initially from the Steelers, I believe. I really do.
Yeah, no, and I feel even if he does get that type, it'll be for it'll be for a 1 or 2 year deal until they can see what he has to offer and if he's going to continue to be like how he was with the Steelers.
Yeah.
I think he needs to more so prove himself before he decides to sign a really long-term deal.
Yeah, I mean, I get the saving your body, but he's coming with a lot of baggage and a lot of drama, and it's just a matter of whether a team really wants to take that on, and somebody will. One of these teams with a shit ton of cap space that's going nowhere will absolutely do that. There is definitely talent there, but Le'Veon Bell's not winning a Super Bowl anytime soon, and I say that, and he'll sign with New England, but we can just hope that doesn't happen. All right, guys, that's pretty much it for the league news. Hopefully that's the last we talk about Bell. I'm sure there'll be another mention here or there, but that wraps it up. I cannot stress to all of you enough how sick and tired we are of talking about Bell, hearing about it. It is good to be over. Moving on from the league news, we're going to finish up here today with the Thursday night preview. We have Green Bay sitting at 4-4-1, going up against Seattle at 4-5. Again, another good matchup. You look at the records, you might not think that, but these are two teams that are battling, which makes for a fantastic Thursday night matchup. What do you think about it, Jesse? Excited?
Yeah, no, I mean, obviously neither of these are my team, but no, it'll be a good matchup, especially with how Seattle played against the Rams this past week. I think there's super rich history between Green Bay and Seattle. In important games and stuff. And I think, and maybe it's not as important as games in the past, but this is an important game for both of them. Obviously, Green Bay's lost 3 of their last 4, trying to come back and bounce back. And the only game that they won was 3 points against the 49ers. And Seattle just lost to the Rams. Obviously a tough one because they just lost by a score. I think both these teams are kind of just going to slug it out, and I see it being a high-scoring one, and I see them, battling it out to the very end. So I am actually excited for.
Yeah, this is definitely be a good one, especially when both teams are. Well, Seattle's not so much in the division hunt; they're kind of fighting for a wild card at this point. But Green Bay is right in the thick of things here. So this game is definitely important for them. We talked about them coming off the at the time possible loss to New England, how the season really wasn't lost because they have a pretty easy schedule going forward, especially after the next 2 weeks here against Seattle and Minnesota. I still think them going 1-1 here in the next 2 weeks. They're definitely still right in it with a really easy schedule going down the stretch here. But sticking with Seattle, obviously the Rams are running away with the division. That's not going anywhere anytime soon. It is absolutely vital for them to pick up a win here as well. Obviously both teams want to win, but they are fighting for their lives for a wild card spot at this point. And their schedule again is a bit tougher than than Green Bay's. But a win for either team would obviously go a long way because this is one on the schedule that is a tough matchup for both teams.
Yeah, most definitely. I'm how much of a shootout it turns out to be. Do you think Green Bay bounces back with this game? Do you think they kind of continue the losses.
I think they do. What they're coming off of, they beat Miami last week pretty handily. Aaron Rodgers didn't have the biggest day of his career at whatsoever, really. But I think so. I think this offense kind of needs to get back on track. They haven't really looked all that great despite putting up 31 points last week since that loss to LA. It just hasn't quite been there for them. Been a little bit shaky. They're going up against a decent defense in Seahawks. Obviously not what they once were, but we'll see. We'll see. I'm not really sure. I think it's easy to say a team's going to show up. Every team shows up, but it would go a long way if they get the offense really rolling again, like they had before the Rams game, or during the Rams game rather. It was really the last solid game that this offense has had.
Yeah, I think too. Like despite Seattle's record, they're a really good team. They only lost to the Rams last week by 1 score, so it was like it honestly could have went either way. It just needed a little time for Seattle. So obviously, Rams are a really good team. And for them to just kind of stick with them the whole game like that, I think it definitely says something about them. And their run game was awesome last week, and I think it's one of the keys for them if they want to win this game. Continue the huge run game, and they have a chance with Green Bay's defense because the defense is pretty shaky for the Packers.
Yeah, and that's something we had talked about that when we broke down the preview for the game against the Rams. How important it was. It's good to see that their run game has started to show up. They can combo that with a solid Aaron Rodgers routing outing. They should be a-okay, and then it comes down to the defense having another good game. They need to be able to keep Green Bay in these tight ones.
Yeah, I am feeling a big Rodgers game. Prime time. It's against Seattle. 2012, that Hail Mary in the end zone. The Packers lost. It was huge. There's definitely a rich history between the two, and I just think this game's gonna either come down to the wire, or one team is really gonna take the reins and just take off with it and obliterate the other team because of the history that they've had. But if Rodgers shows up, Green Bay wins this game. If the Seattle's run game really shows up, then Seattle wins the game. I think those are the two main elements in this game.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with you on that one. And like always, never count Rodgers out. He is definitely due for a Rodgers-like game. Well overdue. So,
Oh, yes.
So we'll see if he can bring it on prime time. What's your final score for this one?
I'm going to go 34-28. Green Bay over Seattle. Calling a last-second touchdown.
Okay. I got Green Bay winning this one close, 30-27. I'm gonna say a field goal, not last second, but it's gonna come down to Wilson having to make that game-winning or tying drive, and he's not gonna be able to do it. The defense is gonna make the big stop that they need so badly.
Yeah. So do you think Green Bay still in the division race? You got Chicago 6-3, Minnesota's 5-3-1, Green Bay's 4-4-1, and Detroit's 3-6. Honestly, to me, this whole division is still up for grabs.
Yeah, I mean,
for anybody.
All of these teams have shown flashes of brilliance, and they've also all looked like a dumpster fire at points in time.
Yeah.
Especially Chicago. I mean, Chicago's really had some really bright spots, and then they just look kind of lost out there. I mean, they've won 3 in a row, which is big for them. They've kind of gotten back on track since the issues. But I think this is it is. This could definitely be a 9-7 division. I really believe so. Hell, the Lions could somehow sneak in there. Like I said, they've shown the signs that they can be a solid team all around in all 3 phases. I think Green Bay at the end of the day, though, they're going to win this division. They're going to sneak in at like it would be 9-6-1 for them, either that or like a 10-5-1, something like that. But we'll see.
Yeah.
It kind of depends on what kind of Minnesota and Chicago teams we get the rest of the season as well. This is an interesting division. The records might not look all that great, but you got some interesting teams that could get rolling here.
Yep. So game, I think they're definitely in a good spot to continue to try and win the division, because I think the NFC has potentially 2 wild card teams out of one division this year. I just think there's a lot of the running like that, especially out of the NFC South. Like the speaking of, your Falcons didn't
I
win it
was
all
gonna
out.
say something. There's still a chance, okay?
Yeah, there's Falcons obviously still in it, I think. Then they have the Saints, and then you have Panthers. I mean, you can grab it from any team in that division, honestly. So who knows?
Yeah, the NFC. I mean, I think we said this last week. The NFC South is just always an interesting down to the wire division, and that's what it's gonna be for sure this year as well.
Yeah, no, I totally agree, and I just going for, but I think we're put up there then.
Alrighty, sounds good. Yeah, we crammed a little bit in here today. Like we said before, guys, we should be completely back on track this week with scheduling. IRL stuff, unfortunately does trump all. If anything changes, we'll throw a tweet out. But as of right now, we should be recording our preview episode and post Thursday night episode. It'll be up on Saturday. This one's going up today, Wednesday, the 14th.
Yep. Yep,
So,
sounds good.
we'll try. We will do our best to stay on track. As always, guys, thank you for listening to us yak.
Yep. And we will talk to you guys Saturday.
Later.
Yeah.